I was hot in that. I'm sweating. You can see it. But that feels a lot better. Okay, so you can't eat your kids because they'll never learn. Part two. So if you're going for a meat, I suggest don't shy away from the four. I'm saying don't eat your kids because if you do, how are they going to learn the lesson and not repeat the lesson? To repeat the lesson, to not repeat the mistake. Okay, and let's not call it a mistake. Okay, let's call it a learning opportunity. Okay, so in the learning opportunity, I'd like you to consider the forearm because it's got a lot of bones in there, but the meat's quite dark. Okay, it's quite dark because it's an active muscle. Okay, so it's got a lot of bones, but it's got a lot of flavor. Okay, and so what you can do is, you could take apart the pieces of meat, you could pull it apart, or you could braise the entire thing, and then let's soak it in Coke. Let's soak it in Coke because it's an old ancient recipe from my orc days. Okay, the Coca-Cola Castle, as it were, where Sonata came and told us all that one day he was going to travel to the human world and conquer it all with his bright, shiny nose and 8 tiny reindeer. But, okay. Anyways, it's not really a digression because it has to do with Coke. But anyway, the point is that you can soak your meat in Coca-Cola, and then but don't eat the. You can't drink the Coke. You don't drink meat Coke is what I'm saying. So when you're finished with the marinade, you let the meat soak in there for like 24 hours. You've got to get rid of the meat coke, and your sink's too full. So this is where the danger lies. The sink is too full to have clearance, okay, to pour out the meat coke from the roasting pan. So what you've done is you're going to pour it into those mason jars you got when you were going to start canning. Okay, and because your aunt sent you all those recipes, you're going to start canning because you wanted to start canning, like that time you wanted to start shaving with a straight razor because you just got mad at the Gillette Corporation for no reason. You raged impotently at them one night, okay, and decided that you no longer wanted to spend $10 for 5 thin blades. And why do they have them locked up at the Walmart anyway, next to the rifles? Okay, so I want access to those. Okay, okay. I'm not going to paint all the mentally ill with one brush, but speaking for me personally, it's probably a good thing that I don't have a rifle at home or 5 Gillette blades because it just incenses me that I got to pay $15 for a refill. And then I never know where I've put them, so I always have to get them with the blade included, and it costs so much money. So the point is, I was going to start shaving with a straight razor, and I went to Schmitty, and he was the barber who taught me how to shave the straight razor, okay, along the belt, the strapping belt, as it were, okay, and excuse me. Ugh. The point is, okay, uh, the mason jars. Okay, so the mason jars was what it was. And you poured the meat coke into it because you're like, I'll get to it later. I'll dump it later once I've done the dishes. And I can't do the dishes until I've unloaded the dishwasher, okay? But I can't unload the dishwasher until I've cleaned the counters. And I can't clean the counters until I've done whatever it is, okay? So that's a real problem. That's a real problem. You got to pick one of those things and just do them. But I mean, it's easier to say than to do, okay? Don't. This isn't an advice column. I'm not Ann Landers or Miss Moth. Okay, Miss Moth Attack. I don't know a lot of stuff, and if you speak with enough force and forcefulness, you could pass yourself off as an expert on pretty much anything. But eventually, the proof is going to be in the pudding, and someone's going to eat your pudding, and they're not going to like the taste. So regardless of whether it, okay. I was gonna make some kind of analogy to another bodily fluid, but you know what? I'm getting tired of that kind of scatological humor. Okay, where I want to compare semen and pudding. Okay, why? What's the point? Okay, do I feel some pressure? Okay, Okay, I don't know. But the point is, don't drink the meat Coke because those meat Coke is going to be around in jars. Now, first of all, your family can't drink the meat Coke, and you can't drink the meat Coke. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're really good at eating leftovers that are way older than anyone thinks they have a right to be, and then you eat them anyway. Okay, which was my roommate in university said I was kind of. That was the key to my longevity is that I was slowly poisoning myself with microdoses of Bacillococci and Coctorictus and Strictocratus and Strativindius. Okay, and so you pride yourself on having an iron stomach, so to speak. But meat coke is a whole other level of contagion, so don't even touch it. Okay. So make sure your sink is clear next time, or make sure you've got a straight shot to the bathroom sink, okay? And then you pour out the meat coke from the pan directly. Don't leave it sitting around in jars, for God's sake. I learned the hard way. Okay. And then so now you want to don't salt the meat. You've just soaked it. So why would you salt the raw meat, okay? Because that's going to suck the moisture right out of that meat. And so what you want to do is you want to have it like the keg. I know that you want that salt encrusted kind of pepper, salt crust steak meat. But that's not how you get it. You don't put the salt on the raw meat and then cook the meat. Okay, the salt comes later. You got to sear that flesh. Okay, you got to sear that flesh, and and this is regardless of the type of animal we're talking about, whether it's cow, pig, chicken, your naughty kids. Okay, I'm an orc. Okay, I can say that. Okay, our culture kind of prides itself on being what's it called? Animalistic, hyper individual. So like we don't really care about anyone else but ourselves, and that includes our own children. We'll eat them. We're kind of like spiders in that way, except the opposite. Wait, what? No, the spider babies eat the parents, but that makes kind of poetic sense because like have of my body, eat of my Christ. So the point is, um, don't salt it raw. You sear the meats, and this is a suggestion, if not a rule, uh, for any meats. So you sear it, and then you slowly cook the meat. You flip them back over. You sear them on all the sides, and then you flip them, and you slow cook that meat. Okay, now you could put more Coke in there, but it has to be new Coke. And I'm not talking about like when they made the new flavor in 1985, and you went back to the future to go get some. Okay, I'm talking about it has to be fresh Coke out of the bottle. Now you could use a cherry Coke. I would suggest not using anything with aspartame or sucralose because it kind of leaves that aftertaste. You want the sugar. If you want if you can get the cane sugar Coke, that's good, but that's more Pepsi. But you don't want to start mixing Coke and Pepsi. You soaked in Coke but cooked in Pepsi. Okay, make up your mind, man. Show some fealty to your brands, okay? The brands that have taken care of you your entire life, and now you're just going to switch them up like they're hooty doo. Okay, so soak it in Coke, put it in the oven for baby and me, okay? So that is how you prepare the meat, okay? So it's good for any festive time, okay? And then you make the potatoes or the yummy yummies or whatever it is. The peas, the corn, okay, the marshmallow salads, okay, also gelatin. Uh, uh, Jello salad, Sprite. See, this is the thing where you're going to want to use the meat coke in the gelatin salad because oftentimes it calls for pop. But again, get rid of that meat coke ASAP because you're going to be tempted one night. You're going to be tempted. If you leave those jars of meat coke around, they start calling your name in the evening, okay? In the night, you wake up at 3 a.m., which is the real witching hour. It's not midnight. It's 3:13. 3:13 a.m., you wake up, and the veil is thin between the realms, and sometimes maybe there's someone who wants you to come visit permanently, and so they're like, drink the meat coke, Silverhead. Drink the meat coke, my friend, and I shall usher you in to gesture you in through the pearly gates of my pearly wisdom, and you shall join me on the afterlife, okay? So you're like, no, thanks. I'm going to pass on that one. Um, but then, you look up on the roof to see what was the matter, and you see a guy up there with 8 tiny reindeer putting his finger in his nose, okay? And then he's down your chimney, even though you don't have one. Suddenly you do. It's like a real dream logic situation where, suddenly you just know you have a chimney, even though you haven't seen it. Uh, so then you're suddenly downstairs kissing Santa Claus, okay, really giving her, and it's kind of hot. It's not something that I would have expected. This isn't where I thought it was going. But you bend him over, and then you let him bend you over, and you have a nice time. Okay, you wash your hands and stuff after, but because but you have a great time. He's got those soft lips and the tickly beard. And I didn't think beards were going to be a thing I was into, but I guess with the added glamour of it being Santa Claus, you're like it gets you pretty hard. So that's what happened that night when the ghosts tried to convince me to drink the meat coke. Okay, and then Santa, of course, this is where the lesson came in. Is Santa was famished, and I was in the bathroom, polishing up, and he drank the meat coke. Okay, and I don't know if you've seen, Santa Claus with Tim Toolman, but that means that I'm Santa this year because it was a slow death. He was very, very ill for a long time, and then finally succumbed to his illness, and thankfully the baby survived. And so now I'm a single dad. Uh, Santa had my baby, and I'm Santa Claus. I don't know how I'm going to work out childcare this Christmas Eve, but that's a tomorrow for me problem. That's a tomorrow Santa problem, okay? So, Santa Silverhead, I can always say the job, I came by it honestly, or I came on it honestly. So, that is why you never, okay, drink the meat coke. I'm checking the time now because I got to go pick up my kid from school. Don't drink the meat coke. In fact, don't when okay, but you like having those jars around. But I was going to say when your aunt offers you those jars, maybe don't take them, so you won't have anything big enough well, they weren't big enough to hold all the meat coke anyway. There was 4 or 5 jars. Which how much coke were you using? Anyway, that's I like having them around. They aesthetically please me.